Individuals come to the safety profession from very different paths. These paths can affect how these individuals are viewed and view the profession and the organizations where they practice their craft. We'll talk with the executive director of an association that focuses on the working safety professional. Up next on this episode of the Psych Health and Safety USA podcast. From Flourish DX, this is the Psych Health and Safety USA podcast. Safety at work is more than freedom from physical injury. To be safe, you have to feel safe. Join us each week as we discuss psychologically healthy and safe work in the USA. Well, welcome to this week's Psych Health and Safety USA podcast. I'm your host, Dr. I. David Daniels, and I want to thank you for tuning in. Each week, we seek to increase awareness of the importance of psychological health and safety by learning from the lived experiences, research, and expertise of our guests, and advocating strategies to reduce harm and minimize vulnerability to psychosocial hazards in the American workplace. So when I decided that I wanted to pursue an occupational health and safety profession, I started looking around for opportunities to gain credentials, to learn, to get more information, so I came out of 30 years in fire rescue service, and there's a lot of talk about safety there. Had opportunity to chair some national committees, including the safety committee of the International Association of Fire Chiefs. But as I was transitioning to becoming a full-time safety guy, again, looking for, credibility and credentials, I got the impression, and was actually told by some of the systems that, my experience didn't count. And I was kind of puzzled by that. So I go, what is it that I can do to again, not only learn more, but to get some recognition of what I already know, and to get a credential that would help me be, marketable in the safety profession. And I stumbled across a group called the National Association of Safety Professionals. And I hadn't heard of them before. And at the time I was working as a matter of fact, in the city of Atlanta. And he says, there's these people out there, and you can do some training through them. And a lot of it this was pre-pandemic. You can actually do it online, and you don't necessarily have to sit in a classroom, because in many cases, you probably know that stuff already. So I checked them out and started off becoming a certified safety manager. And I can recall taking a class on hazardous materials. Well, that was pretty easy for a guy who was a hazmat tech in fire rescue service for a number of years. Now, there were some other things, not so much. Not so much. It was pretty difficult. As a matter of fact, in my certified safety director process, there were some of the, the courses and classes that I barely got through, just barely passed on the third test opportunity. But I say all that to say that it is important that people have opportunities to be recognized for what they already know while they're learning new things, and to get credentials that kind of mean something. And that's the topic of our conversation today. I have the honor of speaking with the executive director of the National Association of Safety Professionals. And his name's Eric. And we're gonna open up the conversation, as I so often do, with a question that seems odd to some people, but it's not odd to everybody. Who is Eric Gislason?
Well, thanks, first of all, David, for having me on your podcast. I love it, and I'm excited to be with you, so I appreciate the opportunity. So I am Eric Gislason. That's a tongue twister of a last name.
It is.
So it's just Eric, and I am the executive director of the National Association of Safety Professionals. I've been with the company since 2014. NASP has been around since the year 2000, but I've been with them for, the last 7 or 8 years. And I'm also one of the principal trainers here. I teach a lot of the certified safety manager courses myself. I love teaching. I have a passion for it. That's kind of my forte. But I run the show here as well. And my background is not fire service. My background was actually a degree in environmental. And I've been doing this for 30 plus years. When you get to be my age, David, you just say 30 plus. You don't.
Absolutely.
I'm old. I've been doing it for a while. But I started out in the environmental arena, back in the late 80s and early 90s, probably every underground storage tank in the United States was leaking gasoline, BTEX contaminants, that type of thing. So I was on these sites doing plume delineation and groundwater remediation and that type of thing. But I started working for a company in Wilmington. We're out of Wilmington, North Carolina, that did cleanup. So it was hazardous waste cleanup, emergency response, and that company's still in existence today. But that's where we started teaching HAZWOPER courses way back when in the early 90s. And that's where I really saw the transition of, hey, I'm all about protecting the planet. I love the environment, don't get me wrong, but my passion was for helping people. And so I quickly went down the safety route and started doing more of the safety. So I did that for several years and then moved into several different industries. I was the safety manager of a pork processing plant for many years, the largest in the world. We had a lot of issues, learned a lot of lessons in that area. Then went into automotive for many years, was the safety environmental director for a division of Fiat. And then I got into pharmaceuticals. So I've bounced around. I actually did some water treatment for a while. So I've kind of got a wide variety, a wide swath of experience in various fields, which gives me an edge when I teach these classes, because a lot of these industries, I've either done it or I've done consulting for it. So it kind of puts me in a little better position to talk safety and environmental to a wide variety of people. And then I came to NASP again about 7 or 8 years ago, and here I am to stay.
Right on, right on. We were talking about this before we came on air, talking about the fact that the conversation around psychological health and safety is a new one here in the U.S. And frankly, if you wanted to find a definition of psychosocial hazards, many, I won't say all, but many of the safety-related sites in the U.S., it won't give you anything. I mean, really, there's nothing there. And right. One of the places that you can find is if you go to NASP, you'll find that there is actually a definition of a psychosocial hazard. So talk to me just in general, when you hear psychological health and safety, what does that mean to you?
So it's such an all-encompassing term, right? I think you really hit a really key point, David, which is it hasn't taken off in the U.S. It's big in Australia. As you know, the UK, Europe is embracing the concept. I think we do it. We just don't realize that we're doing it. We haven't put a name to it per se. But I think, in my career, the first 20 years as a safety professional, what was beaten into my head? Safe work environment, OSHA compliance, right?
Sure.
OSHA compliance. You provide a safe work environment by doing OSHA compliance. And you're like, okay, well, that seems, follow the codes of federal regulations. You do what you need to do, and everything's going to be great. Turns out that's just not the case, right? And the statistics bear that out, that 80 to 90% of the injuries in the workplace have nothing to do with a safe work environment from, machine guarding or electrical. It's at-risk behaviors.
Yes.
So you can have a 100% completely safe work environment from an OSHA compliance perspective, but you're still having a lot of injuries. And that's because people are doing things that they shouldn't be doing. So then you have to dig a little bit further, a little bit deeper, and say, okay, well, is it distraction? Is it complacency? Is it fatigue? Is it frustration? What are these states of mind within our workers? And then you peel the onion back even further, and you have to determine, well, why do these people feel this way? What is leading them to these behaviors? And a lot of it can be attributed to the psychosocial aspects of their work environment, whether it's improper, easy stuff like improper equipment or not enough resources to do the job, to more complex, like supply chain issues or the COVID virus or there's just so many different facets to the psychosocial behavior aspect, meaning work environment, social factors at work. Think about the whole concept of bullying in the workplace and violence in the workplace.
Right.
Or, you got to work 7 12s in a row, right? All these are the social aspects of this network, this system that we call work, that we just assume, well, it's work. This is what we have to do. We're programmed to do it, and we don't have any alternative. And management doesn't look at it any differently, or they haven't been looking at it any differently. And that's why I think that the whole concept of psychosocial behavior should be the fabric of every organization, shouldn't it?
I absolutely agree with you. As a matter of fact, I'm fairly convinced that it is at the root of every major safety issue that you have. It starts with some psychosocial root somewhere. It does, because people, they don't just show up at work without any other influences, without any other things going on in their lives. All that stuff comes with you. And again, right, when we talk about psychological safety, the idea about being able to bring your whole self to work, you can bring your whole self all you want, but if the environment that you place that whole person in exposes you to additional and in some cases even more severe or chronic psychosocial hazards, then you're going to have the same problems. You're going to have people inattentive. You're going to have people erring. You're going to have people, getting angry and violent and whatnot, because we've not looked at the environment. Again, this is not, in my view, this is not about the human being. It's about the environment we put the human being in.
And how they react to that environment.
Absolutely. And I wonder sometimes why we go out and we put the advertisement up, says we're hiring for whatever position. And somehow we assume that the person, again, is going to come with all of the skills that they learned in school or part of their education or their certification, but they're not going to bring their depression. They're not going to bring their anxiety. They're not going to bring their phobia regarding whatever it is. Yeah, that comes with them as well. And organizations, at least again, in my view, tend not to want to focus on that and do anything about that. But that's a part of that whole person that we need to be able to recognize and to address to the extent we can't. We can't fix everything, but we have to be aware. You can't eliminate all chemical hazards either, but you can isolate that chemical from human beings. You can create distance. You can, provide PPE and monitors. And the hazard's still there. Folks are just less vulnerable to it because what we've done in the built environment.
Well, that's exactly right. It reminds me of my time at this particular industry where you bring in new employees and they got the opportunity to sit through my orientation training. And I would get them pumped up on safety. And it's like, safety is important. And this is why we do it. And this is what your role is within this system. And, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months later, I see them out on the floor doing things that they shouldn't be doing. I'm like, I remember you from the orientation training. You were so, and you know what their response is? It's like, Eric, this is the way it's done out here.
Right.
This is what everybody else does. I'm going to do it too.
Right.
The peer pressure aspect from a psychosocial behavior aspect, it's huge. It is. What is everybody else doing? I got to fall in line with whatever is allowable, whatever, we're going to do it the safe way until somebody's not looking. And then we got to get production. It makes me crazy,
Yeah, it's again, it's a thing. it's a thing. So share a little bit about what is NASP? What is that all about? You've been there 7 years. What is that about? What's the elevator speech on what the NASP is about?
The elevator speech. Do you have elevator music to go along with it, David? We don't want to put people to sleep now.
Right.
So, in a nutshell, NASP was created for the reason that you opened up with your introduction, was that we understand that there's a lot of safety professionals out there that, for whatever reason, didn't go the traditional path of a 4-year degree and then work their way into a safety field from that degree. In fact, the statistics will tell you most don't, right? Most people, I certainly didn't. I didn't look at safety. I looked at environmental. I wanted to do environmental, but a lot of the people out there are military, or they're police, or they're fire department, and they didn't go to a 4-year college to get a degree in it. They didn't go to a 4-year college at all. So, but that doesn't make them a poorer trained safety professional. It just means they didn't have that academic background. So we created a lot of professional development courses like the CSN, the Certified Safety Manager course, for individuals that need those credential building, those letters, right? The training and that information. And for the longest time, like, for example, the Certified Safety Manager, that is our flagship course. You can do it online, or you can take the classroom. The way we have differentiated ourselves from a lot of our competitors is the style of training. Okay. Especially in our classroom courses, long before it was a thing, like ANSI 490.1 and Appendix E of the HAZWOPER standard. A lot of these standards finally coming out saying you should have the skills on how to train, right? We need to be able, as safety professionals, to train others. And my gosh, David, I know you've sat through some of those courses. 29 CFR 1910.1 20 states that emergency response. And you're just like, oh, this is horrible.
Right.
And it's still the norm. I mean, I still see a lot of safety professionals that don't have training skills. So we kind of combine the training skill aspect of it into OSHA compliance, because I'm going to tell you, and people are going to probably say you're crazy. It's not possible. But safety training should be dynamic. It should be fun. It should be interactive. It should be engaging. It should be about problem solving. It should be all these things that engage the employee. It's going to cause more retention of the material.
Yes.
It's going to make them think about safety first. It's going to lead to behaviors, which lead to habits. We know attitudes lead to behaviors, lead to habits. And we want to catch that at the beginning and create positive habits. So we have a philosophy at NASP. We call it the NASP method, but it's really based on andragogy, which is the science of training adults, as
opposed to pedagogy, training kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely, and that's huge. And we've gotten a lot of great feedback from our students based on the fact that, okay, now that little light bulb comes on. They're like, I get it. I see what you're doing. I see what you're saying. So, and it's not rocket science, David. It's engaging the employees that you're training, make them problem solve, have them time to give feedback, and instead of what I call information dumping, right?
Wow.
Here, let me pour in this information on the OSHA regulations. Now go out there and do a good job.
Yeah,
it doesn't work.
I also find that, and again, I say these things not necessarily to be critical of those that do them, because in many cases, that's how they were trained. But many safety professionals spend more time telling me what they know, and I leave not knowing anything. I mean, because sometimes we talk over people's heads. We get into these, esoteric discussions about things that they have no idea what we're talking about. And if you want to look at the OSHA regulations specifically, it talks about the fact that we should be presenting training in a language that the student or the learner understands. That's not just about whether it's English or Spanish or French. It's also with words and phrases that people get, that such that they can take it back to their workplace and actually use it. There's some vernacular that gets used out on the shop floor, and and it's not good or bad, right or wrong. It's just different than the way I would talk about these things in a classroom or in an office. But people need to be able to have these conversations, again, in a language that they get, because ultimately the goal is to have them recognize the hazard that they're being exposed to and understand how they can minimize the potential of being harmed by that hazard.
Absolutely. 100% agree.
Yeah.
And that's knowing your audience too, right?
Yes.
That's knowing your workers and empathizing with their situation. I will tell you that the best way to build credibility with your workers as a safety professional is go out and do a little bit of what they do.
Right.
It is so easy for us to preach from our altar and say, hey, you know what? OSHA says you got to do this and you got to do this. And they're like, hey, wait a minute, Eric. You go out and do what we do and see if you can comply with OSHA.
Right.
When you're doing welding, cutting, and brazing, you have to have your combustibles 35 feet apart, 35 feet away from it. Where do you work that all combustibles are 35 feet away from it? It's not possible.
Right.
So, to build credibility, you got to be able to understand their perspective. And I even tell people, and we'll turn the OSHA recording off right now. I say, I don't care if you comply with the letter of the law from OSHA. I just want you to be safe.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
There's no way to comply with the letter of the law 100% of the time. I'm just going to say that, and people are going to, they're going to say, Eric, what are you telling people? But that's just the truth. The reality, there's real world versus OSHA compliance. And we as safety professionals need to disseminate that attitude towards the people, because they're going to be like, hey, you know what? He or she gets it.
Yes. Well, that's really what I've come to appreciate about, particularly some of the international standards. They are more descriptive than prescriptive, and descriptive says this is the thing that you need to get done. How you do it is really up to you and up to the scenario. We have a lot of arguments around how to do things, and not enough discussions about what we're doing and why we're doing it. So there's what is this? What do you call this thing? And why are we doing it? If I can figure that piece out, how the individual steps, they don't have to be identical. They don't have to be cookie cutter. Because as to your point, ultimately we want that person to go back home. And I would say better than they came to work today. Not the same, better. I mean, if you go to work, don't get injured, and you actually get paid for it, I think that's actually pretty good. And you're actually a little bit better off. We should be trying to improve people's lives, not let's see if we can just skate by without you getting killed. I don't think that's a really high bar, to be quite honest.
That is absolutely the truth. You look at what's the pyramid of Maslow's hierarchy?
Yes, of needs. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Absolutely.
Right? And sustenance, food, water, and safety are at the bottom of Maslow's pyramids of needs. And then at the top, you've got self-actualization and things like that. And I think, you look at, David, how much time do we spend in the workplace? More than we spend with our families.
That's right.
Right. And if you don't have engaged employees, if they're disengaged and they're doing the bare minimum and just, I need my check and I need to get out, versus, hey, let me engage you. Let me assist you with maybe back to the whole psychosocial thing. You're having some personal problems. Is there drug addiction? You're a smoker. Maybe you're not in the healthiest shape. There's things that we can do to help you at work to be your work family and be your brother's or sister's keeper and actually improve their lives. And
yes,
I mean, as a safety professional, I think a lot of us who are watching this podcast can say we're also probably social workers and psychologists as well.
Right. Well,
and we should be.
You have to be.
Hi listeners, Jason here. We hope you're enjoying this latest podcast episode. Now, if you're like Joelle, Alicia and myself and enjoy learning from the best, then the Flourish DX Academy is for you. The Academy includes free e-learning courses on the ISO 45003 standard for psychological health and safety at work, and associated topics such as how to conduct a psychosocial risk assessment and how to create the business case for psych health and safety. All courses feature high-quality videos, downloadable resources, multi-choice questions, and a downloadable training certificate on completion. Take your learning to the next level with all Flourish DX Academy courses included within the Flourish DX mobile app. Select podcast episodes from the Psych Health and Safety podcast and sister podcasts from Canada and the USA are also included. Get started with FlourishDX for free at www.flourishdx.com/get-started. That's www.flourishdx.com/get-started. Now back to this episode.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
This is about keeping the whole person safe. And if you, again, we could bring you into the workplace, put you at a machine and put a machine guard on it. And if you go home and are cutting the lawn and put your finger in the lawnmower, you're still going to lose the finger. And
That's right.
Ultimately, we don't want you to lose the finger. That's what we don't want you to lose the finger. We don't want you to get exposed to something that could make you seriously ill or kill you. And it doesn't matter where. Most people learn about safety at work. They don't learn about it at home. Unless you live with a guy like Eric who's going to talk about that stuff all the time. But most people don't have that opportunity. So they're going to learn about things at work that they can take home, and they can be safer there. Because again, injured means injured. You still can't come to work regardless to where it happened. And I'm not sure why it matters. You still can't come to work. And so if you're only interested, and this is something, and I will attribute this to my studies to become a certified safety director. I will never forget this. 3 reasons why people do safety related stuff. I talk about it all the time. Because it is ethically, morally the right thing to do, because it's going to save them money, or because they have to.
That's right.
And it doesn't, I'm not value judging why. If you're doing it because you have to, that's great. But there's a higher calling that if you do it because it's the right thing to do, you don't have to worry so much about the compliance piece, because you'll always comply. You're not going to get anywhere close to compliance. You're going to be better in every case. So I want to continually talk about, something that, and I don't know if you've thought about it this way, or folks at NASP think about it in this way, but one of the things that, again, drew me to, the certification and to continue remaining certified is the access that people get who might not otherwise have the same access. So again, I told you, I come out of the fire service, and I think I had a master's degree at the time. But I didn't have years of experience doing safety-related stuff in a construction company or heavy manufacturing or, food, production like you. So, but I think that there are a lot of people out there, as you said, they either didn't go to school, some don't even want to go to school. As a matter of fact, a lot of our kids are saying, what are we going to do that for? To get in hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt and not be able to get a job. So talk about this focus on the working safety profession, because that's something that I kind of associate with NASP is that, the people who get their fingernails dirty, that those are the type of people they're actually looking for to help in terms of their safety journey.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And to your point earlier about kids not going into debt, the trend now is to not go to a 4-year college because of some of the debt aspects of it, and the fact that as a country, we are starving for mechanically inclined individuals that can do the jobs that we still need to do within the United States, so that we're not so reliant on other countries for products and services. So let me just start by saying I am an advocate for higher education. If you can do it, yes, do it.
Absolutely.
Right? Go to it. And, we're partners with Columbia Southern University. All of our stuff can be transferred to academic credits. I love that. I'm for it. I'm 100% education all the way. However, David, you talk a lot in some of your presentations about DEI, right? Diversity, equity, inclusion. And I love that because, the safety field in general has been dominated by old white guys like me. I'm just going to say it, right? And that's not a reflection of our demographics anymore. When I teach these CSN classes, I get a lot more females. I get minorities, Hispanic, Black. I love that because that's the more relational to the demographics of what we're trying to serve. However, I say that model needs to be expanded to anybody for whatever reason, for socioeconomic reasons, or just the path they decided to choose. It may not have included a 4-year education. They shouldn't be left out of the safety professional realm. So again, for many years, all we did was professional development courses. You took a test at the end, you got the certificate of completion, and it's a good certificate course, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of our clients came to us and were like, why don't you have some of these post-nominal designations, these professional designations, like some of these other agencies out there that have theirs? And so it took us about 3 years, and now we have certifications. There's a difference between a certificate and a certification. Certification is an exam proctored by a third party, the whole bit. And what we did was we created these certifications based on boots on the ground safety, right? And I am not disparaging any of the other certifications out there. If you're qualified for these other certifications, get dual certifications, right? Get as many certifications as you can. But ours has less emphasis on math and engineering concepts and more on regulatory, confined space, electrical, HAZCOM, hazmat, the list goes on. And then safety management systems and training methodologies and kind of the stuff that the boots on the ground safety professional that's out there doing the work needs those knowledge, skills, and abilities. So we created what's called a certified safety director and a master safety professional. These are two separate exams accredited by the ANSI National Accreditation Board. That's the highest level accrediting board out there that we're knowledgeable of. So now we have two certifications. That's IACET for continuing education, and then ANAB, which is for our two professional designations. And this, to me, is one of those that you don't have to have a 4-year degree. Now, you have to have qualifying credentials. You have to have experience in the field. So there's various tracks. If you've got a bachelor's degree, then it's this amount of experience and this credential. If you've just got a high school diploma, it's this amount of experience, right? But I just don't like the whole concept of excluding 35 to 40% of the safety professionals that can't have an upper level, meaning safety professional or safety director, post-nominal designation. There's agencies out there that have kind of the lower level that you can get without a 4-year degree, but not a safety professional higher level designation. That's what we created, and that's kind of been the feather in our cap. And we're going to continue to expand on those with construction certifications and environmental certifications. We're working on boards that into 2023 and 2024 are going to create additional certifications. But there just has to be alternatives for people that don't qualify for certain designations. And, yes. And that's why we've created what we created. Yes.
Well, again, you probably know how I feel about that. This is not, and again, it's a shame we have to kind of keep repeating this for the folks. And again, the reality is I have more credentials than some of the people who. So I'm not saying it to disparage it at all. I'm just saying, sure. Why can't it be both and instead of either or? I'm really into both and these days. It doesn't matter where you start. It matters whether you end up in safe. I don't care how you get there. It doesn't matter, because ultimately, if we end up in a safe environment and people feel safe, again, it doesn't matter whether they have a degree, whether they don't, whether they have whether they speak English or don't, or whatever. It doesn't matter, because the hazard doesn't make the distinction. Hazards don't care. They don't. They affect people, and they affect you if you're vulnerable to that hazard. And folks need to know, if you were to look at, and I'm sure you know this, that if you look at the injured population in this country every year, it is not representative of the country either, because it is the injured population don't look like the country. It's a lot of people of color and women. Matter of fact, in my research, I can't find a single industry where people of color and women don't get injured more often. But think about this. The OSHA Act still assumes that everybody in the workplace are men.
Right.
And again, that is not said as a criticism of the 535 people who voted on it. That's not. But they were 98% male. That was a perspective that they had. They weren't thinking about how this is going to affect women, because at the time, most of them didn't know a woman was in the workforce. They didn't know that. But we're there now. We're there now. And what NASP has done by opening these credentials up to more people is creating more safe environments where they might not have been otherwise, because that company, they can't afford to pay the person with the PhD in safety, but they can pay somebody who's, this is they're a certified safety manager, and they need somebody to do the work, and that person will take the job. So again, I don't know if you've thought about how this kind of process is changing the game in terms of making places safer for so many more people than would have otherwise.
Well, and that's the ultimate goal. There's so many tracks, like with the CSM, it's a general overview of a lot of different topics. And I tell people, folks, this is a foundational course. Don't stop here. There's so many, people, when they ask me, what do you do? I'm a safety manager of a company or something like that. Oh, you're an OSHA guy. No, I'm not an OSHA guy. I'm trying to protect employees and that sort of thing. But, saying that you're a safety guy or a safety lady, that's really like saying you're a doctor. What are you a doctor in? Are you a podiatrist? Are you a cardiologist?
Right.
There are so many areas of discipline within the safety field: industrial hygiene, confined space rescue, electrical safety. And you can't be a specialist on every single one of them.
That's right.
But you can learn, right? You can learn and go to that area that speaks to you personally, that you've got a passion for, and that maybe if you're a maintenance guy, mechanical safety and machine guarding and safeguarding systems like that, or you're a fire department person, maybe you're going to do more hazmat emergency response or NFPA 101. There's just so many areas of specialization to go in. And that's why I just challenge everybody to continue down the path, because safety is not a one and done.
It's not.
Right?
It's definitely
You're never. The more I know, David, the more I know I don't know.
Right. Absolutely.
And I really feel that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So we started off talking about the fact that psychological health and safety is not, it's a kind of a new topic here in the U.S. Do you have some thoughts about, I realize there's some challenges figuring it out, but do you have some challenges about why that's an issue and what perhaps we can do to get people more comfortable with the topic?
So, first of all, I would recommend everybody reviewing the ISO 45003 standard. And I know you don't have to comply with that standard. It is a recommended standard, and it's an offshoot of the 45001, which is an OHS management system. And even if you're not supposed to do it, folks, if you're not doing OHS management and a safety management system, all of the elements of all of these things, David, are the same. Management commitment, employee involvement, hazard identification, corrective action, training and education, program evaluation. It doesn't matter what it is. It's the same thing. And so implementing the psychosocial aspect of it, you're just building on what you already have. The difficulty is, and we've had this conversation before, is how do I ensure 100% the well-being, and psychosocial safety uses that term a lot, the well-being of my employees? Where do I start? How do I do that? That is a difficult thing, and it's not going to be a one-person job.
That's right.
This is HR. This is your production managers. This is the CEO getting behind you to allocate resources to do that sort of thing. But I always tell people, start by doing a survey. Survey the workforce. See where their attitudes and behaviors and how do they look at the safety program? Do they look at it as a flavor of the month type thing, or it's all lip service and we know production is going to trump safety every day? We know that's, you, Mr. or Miss Safety Director, tell us one thing, and then when we get out, that's going to tell you a lot, and then you can start determining areas of improvement, right? So you developed a list of nonconformities or items to improve. A survey will go a long way. Now, you're always going to get people that are going to say, this company sucks and everything about it sucks. You're going to have that, and that's just going to be a certain percentage of them. I call them cave people. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah,
cave.
citizens against virtually everything.
Yes, sir. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
But, by and large, once you get that survey going, then you can start kind of attacking some of the lower hanging fruit. And there's a lot of aspects to the psychosocial agenda, but it's laid out really nicely in the ISO standard. There's 10 clauses. And folks, for those of you guys that are familiar with the concept of PDCA, the Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle, that's what this entire standard is based on. Plan how we attack it. We do it. We implement our control measures. We check and see if our control measures are doing it through monitoring and lagging indicators. And then we act accordingly by making changes if it's not creating the results that we intended it to create. So it's no different than any of these others. It's just a little bit more expansive because it's bringing the element of the person into the agenda. And we're just not used to doing that yet.
I am hopeful that there are some of our more traditional safety professionals who listen to what you just said, because that really is the point. It is simply another hazard. That's all. How do you address a chemical hazard, a biological one, an ergonomic? It's the same process, and that's what I try to encourage when I talk about this topic. Is don't make it this whole siloed separate thing. It is simply another hazard. And what I'm finding is psychosocial hazards impact every single industry, every single gathering where there are human beings.
That's right.
And there are a lot of organizations out there who feel like, well, we don't do manufacturing and we don't do construction. What do we need a safety person for? Because you have people who are exposed to psychosocial hazards. You're in a call center.
Yeah.
A call center there's a lot of stress associated with serving the needs of other people. That's
Sure.
a constant stress. People yelling at them and cursing them out and hanging the phone up. That has an emotional impact on people. And there's a reason why you have turnover. There's a reason why people are quitting. There's a reason why people are, getting into fights and, and not showing up for work. That hazard has gotten to the place where it's starting to affect their behavior. And so it is the one hazard that crosses everybody and everything. But a lot of folks have jumped into the trend. Oh, it's fashionable to talk about psychological safety now, but they don't really understand identification of hazards. Not really. So they they put out a bunch of fruit bowls and yogurt and, give everybody a gym membership and say it's going to be okay. I'm not saying that that's not good, but you have to gather data about what is affecting this group of people. What stressors, what hazards are they exposed to, and how do we address these hazards? If it's not an issue there, don't worry about it.
Well, and then you've got to get into the demographics, right? Yeah. Does it affect our older population because of this? Yes. Or is it our younger population? Or is it our females? Or is it our Hispanic workers, right? And then you develop these trends, and that's where you attack is because of this, this, and this, and we implement control measures. Again, it's no different. But to your point, David, I think that psychosocial risks are easily the number one cause of injuries in the workplace. Easily. Now, we could talk illnesses that might be different because you've got systems in place. If you're cutting concrete all day and breathing in silica, okay, that's some basic OSHA compliance stuff, right? You need to handle that. But injuries and people getting hurt and stressed and cumulative trauma disorders, the psychology behind ergonomic injuries, way up there.
Absolutely.
Something as simple as, I can pick that up because everybody else is picking that up and I'm a man. And that's why we have a higher injury rate of back injuries, because we're dumb guys that think we can do it. And so-and-so is doing it, so I'm going to do it too. It's amazing that pack mentality.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So wow. I really could just have this conversation with you for hours because you get it. I mean, and I try to get people, even on the podcast, who get it, whether or not they are a psychologist, or psychiatrist, or a mental health professional, or whatever. And particularly, I love having this conversation with other folks who are in the safety profession, because I believe that we can and should be the hub of this conversation, just like we are for all kinds of other hazards. I'm not a chemist either. I mean, I'm not an ergonomist. I'm not an ophthalmologist, but I do recognize when people are being exposed to hazards. That part I get.
Really, really good point.
What to do about it? Well, maybe I need to get an expert to figure out what to do about it. But the challenge in many organizations is nobody's identified the hazard in the first place.
Right. Well, and to that end, I'd just say you don't have to be a psychologist. Don't be afraid of the whole concept of, psychosocial. Ugh, that's not me. You hit the nail on the head, David. You don't have to be a psychologist to identify the hazards and see trends within your workplace that can be attributed to some of these social aspects that we've been talking about for the last 35 minutes.
Well, and I got to tell you that the best source of data on this topic are other human beings. When people say, I don't feel, everything after that, pay attention.
Right.
That doesn't feel, pay attention. After you hear that word, I'm not feeling, pay attention, because often these really major issues could have been handled with, if somebody had paid attention, the person said, I'm not feeling right about this, and get out of this old command and control. Yeah, you got to push through it and do it anyway. No, you don't. No, you don't. And my observation is that particularly, millennials, Gen Zers, they're smarter than us, because they're saying, I'm not doing it. I don't feel right doing this. I'm not going to do it. As a matter of fact, I'll quit this job today and won't even have another job, but I'm not going to expose myself to that. I'm not going to do it. So for those who do have organizations and companies and you want to involve other human beings, listen when people say they feel some kind of way. And you can't give everybody everything that they want. I get that. But you can address how this person is feeling in the moment. Take the time to treat them like a human being. And perhaps you can avoid the amputation or the fatality just by addressing how people feel.
One of the things we teach in our classes, David, is active listening. We are not good, especially us in safety, because we have a very high opinion of ourselves sometimes. just saying, sometimes we do, myself included. And we don't listen. And we don't, you listen to what you want to hear, and I got a solution. This is what you need to do. And we need to be active listeners and really dig down to what is the cause of this person's ailment. If they're not feeling well, or they're feeling stressed, or they, why is that? The 5 whys, the 5 whys, right? But we dig, and then we try to come up with some solutions based on that. I want to share a really quick story to that end. When I was in the meat processing industry, we had an individual. This was an individual on the kill floor, very hot, very dirty environment. And he'd been complaining. He's feeling sick and nauseous. And his supervisor's like, look, you got to power through it. We got a break coming up in 20 minutes. Okay. He dropped on the kill floor, and he had a heart attack and died. And I was actually one of the people there that was trying to use an AED and bring him back. And as we kind of started doing the incident investigation, it was like, this person was telling you they weren't feeling well. Right. And we know the signs and symptoms of a heart attack, the nausea, all those different signs. Nope, you're going to stay online and do what you need to do. Was it preventable? More than likely. I mean, at 100-degree temperature, doing strenuous labor, we could have at least got him out of that work environment and got him some rest and got him some help. And it's those kind of stories that lead back to the whole listening and understanding that people have ailments and problems and situations that arise. Can we do it 100% of the time? No, but we can definitely do a better job than we do.
That's right. So as we conclude, there's probably folks out there who are wondering. They may be looking for credentials, some training. I never heard of that group before. how can people find out more about what it is that you do and what NASP does?
Well, that's always easy. Obviously, you can visit our website at www.naspweb.com. And, again, we cater to safety professionals. We do end user trainings. We do the 10s and the 30s and hazmat refreshers and stuff, but we like to cater to typically the safety manager, safety director, the corporate safety professional. So we do a variety of the professional development. We've got courses, David, that are 242 hours long, and we've got courses that are 8 hours long. So we run the gamut. If it's typically OSHA, we do some ADA stuff. I mean, we've got a variety of different courses that fit people's needs. And obviously, we can come to you as well and do site-specific training. We do a lot of that, a lot of corporate clients. So just come and visit us at our website, the www.naspweb.com. And maybe you can provide my personal email. I do a lot of mentoring of young safety professionals, trying to help them, or people who are maybe starting safety and consulting companies. I've been doing it for a long time. I love sharing my knowledge. I get a lot of satisfaction out of that. So anything I can do to help anybody out there.
Well, go ahead and call it out. I mean, if you want to share, I try not to give away personal emails unless people want to. So go ahead and tell them what your personal email is.
Sure. It's Eric, ERIC, at naspweb.com. So drop me a line. Feel free. Start a conversation. Even if you don't agree with me, let's start a conversation. I love that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Eric, it's been my pleasure to be able to spend some time with you. And as I said, I'm an unabashed supporter of what you're doing. And again, as you know, I'm involved in a bunch of organizations, safety related. But I really feel that, the way you all are going about it, the way the group, again, the whole access thing, I just think that's so important because there are so many people who may not have had an opportunity had not you all created one for them. And that's where my heart is to make sure as many people as possible get the opportunity to not only be safe, but to feel safe at the same time. So thanks so much for what you're doing personally as a safety professional and with the NASP. And for those who are listening in, those who may watch us on YouTube, if you watch on YouTube, like and subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Most of the folks who check this out tend to listen, but if you're a watcher, that's fine. That's why we do our hair and everything so you can see us. But seriously, thanks so much for those of you who take out time each week to follow the podcast. You can certainly follow us on psychhealthandsafetyusa.com or wherever you get your podcast. I'm certainly happy to help any way that I can. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I'm kind of out there saying some things that sometimes people get a little concerned about, but I say what I believe. And ultimately, I'm into seeing people, again, as I said, not only be safe, but feel that way as well. So until the next episode, we thank Eric, you for joining us, and we look to hear and see many of you next time on the Psych Health and Safety USA podcast. Thanks very much. You've been listening to the Psych Health and Safety USA podcast. To stay up to date with the best content on workplace mental health in America, subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and join the Flourish DX community at www.flourishdx.com.